Hello, hello. I'm so excited to dig into this topic with you guys today. My name is Tatiana O'Hara, and today we're going to be talking about how you can scale your business to multiple six figures, seven figures, whatever it is that you desire, how you can scale to whatever that number is by using a team. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So who am I? In case we have not met before, again, my name is Tatiana O'Hara, and I'm an agency and team operations coach. And so basically what that means is I work with entrepreneurs that are established, right? We know how to sell, we know how to get the clients, but we are at the point of capacity. We can no longer run this business on our own. And so we have to build a team of strategists around us so that we can scale to bigger heights, right? So I help you do that. I also help you really optimize the way that you run your business. So really restructuring some of the packages that you have, maybe reanalyzing some of the pricing, because a lot of those barriers prevent us from ever being able to get to the point of hiring people, right? So I got my start in operations right after college. So I studied operations in college, and then immediately following graduation, I took a job as a district manager with a really popular grocery chain. And so while I was doing that, I managed about, I would say 60 to 70 employees. I had about $5 million worth of monthly budgets that I was managing, and I was managing 5 really high sales volume stores. So I did this for about 4.5 years. And during my time there, I hired more than 100 people. I had either promotion conversations or termination conversations with more than 50 people. So I'm no stranger to identifying the best candidate. I'm no stranger to tough conversations, no stranger to identifying potential in someone and helping to lead them and develop them through the process of pulling that potential out, right? But when I first started in this district, my stores were terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I couldn't really figure out why. So I spent the first, I'd say 3 months of my time with this district just kind of sitting back and watching and trying to understand how things worked and what the gaps were. And so quickly I identified that the reason why they were struggling so much operationally was because the managers weren't really given the tools that they needed to succeed as leaders. There was a really big gap between their operational knowledge and their leadership knowledge, right? And so they were really good at doing their job, but when it came to managing other people and them doing their jobs as well, that's when some of the gaps started to occur. And so my managers were doing the jobs of the manager, of the shift manager, of the associate. They were just kind of micromanaging left and right because they didn't know any better, right? So when I made the decision to move, towards entrepreneurship, I quickly identified that entrepreneurs online had the same issue, right? We're really good at the service that we provide, at the product that we sell, right? But when it comes to bringing other people into the mix and learning how to lead people so that you can reach a common goal, there's very little knowledge out there about that, right? And so the framework that I developed that I now use on my clients is honestly what I developed in corporate, and I didn't even realize it. And so I'm going to be able to take you through a little bit of that here today. So today we're going to talk about CEO mindset, how to really set yourself up to scale, and how to identify when it's time to restructure your team for growth. So that can look like when it's time to hire people for the first time, or when it's time to take a closer look at the team that you already have and see what kind of tweaks we need to make. So the first thing we want to talk about is mindset, right? So mindset is so important when it comes to building a team, because you work through certain mindset blocks when you first start your business and you're learning how to really put yourself out there. And then you think, okay, I'm good. I'm comfortable. I'm confident. But then when you begin to hire people, it's like a whole nother layer of the onion gets peeled back, and we realize that there are deeper rooted things there, right? And so one of the ways that we can begin to work through that is to really craft our CEO vision. So you may have heard this a couple different ways, but the biggest thing I want to reiterate is that your vision is not just how much money you want to make. Really, how much money you want to make is lower on the totem pole of importance when it comes to the overall vision, right? So when you think about your CEO vision, you're essentially taking a glimpse into the future. This could be 2 years, 5 years from now, and you're looking at your ideal week in business. And so as you're thinking of that and you're imagining that, I want you to answer some of these questions. So one, how many hours do you work, right? So in your vision, when you're thinking about your average work week, how many hours are you working in a day, in a week? I know for me, it's about 20 to 25 hours, right? I want to really only work I'd say 5 to 6 hours a day. And I don't want to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday at all, right? And so that tells me that I have a short work week, Monday through Thursday. But I also know that I want to be able to be done working by 3 p.m. so that I can be home, to do all the things with my kids that don't exist yet. But whenever I do have kids, me and my fiance, once we get married and we have kids, I want to be able to be present during those hours, right? So that's something that I'm keeping in mind for my vision. The next question, where are you working from? So this is more of a visual thing, right? Kind of visualizing your dream office, your dream workspace. This is where a lot of my clients realize, wow, in my vision, I see my team working with me. Like I see them there in person with me. But currently my entire team is virtual. They're all over the world. And it's like, okay, that's good. That's good information for us to have because now we can kind of build towards that, build towards having more local team members. The next question, how many people are on your team? Now, this isn't a literal question. This is where I really want you to think more about the size of your team and how many people you see yourself working with in a given time. What do you do day in and day out? So with this question, the thought is, what are the tasks that only I do as the CEO? And what are the things that I never do as the CEO, right? This is a super important question because this is going to help us begin to map out what your team needs to look like, right? So for me, I know that I only do things like this, right? Speaking in different summits and workshops and people's programs, speaking on podcasts. I coach my clients, just me specifically, right? And then I know that I also show up on social media in a way that is for connection, not necessarily to only show up to sell, right? So if I know that those are the 3 primary things that I want to do day to day in my business, that gives me a pretty long list of all the things that I don't do, right? And so that helps me begin to identify, okay, I'm going to need someone to help me with tech. I'm going to need someone to help me with the sales process. I'm going to need someone to do all the details for my clients as far as onboarding, offboarding, ordering gifts, scheduling one-on-one calls, so on and so forth, right? The next question is, how much money does your company bring in? So this is, again, lower on the totem pole. It's an important question to know, though, because it's going to help you really be able to map out logistically how many people you need on your team. So if you know that you want to make $500,000 in a given year, that's awesome. You also maybe want to think about how much you actually want to take home, because once we know those 2 numbers, we can reverse engineer to figure out how much money do we need to make a month, right? And then from there, we can identify, okay, we need to make this much money per month. That is about 20 clients per month, but I can only handle 10 clients per month. And so that tells me that I need a team of people that can help me increase my capacity. Then I can identify what is the capacity of my team members. And it just kind of goes on and on and on, right? So you can really begin to map this out logistically. And then lastly, what kind of impact do you create? So this really speaks to some of those core values that you have and just overall the mark that you want to leave on the world. That way, when you're hiring these people and you're going through the hiring process, you can make sure that you're looking for people that value some of the same things that you do and have the same goals of impact. That way, you're not working with a team of people who are working against you or working with people who maybe don't care about the same things that you and your company care about. So why is this important, right? Well, first of all, you're going to know where you're going. So many entrepreneurs online are living their lives launch to launch, new offer to new offer, free workshop to free workshop, summit to summit, and they're just searching for the next thing that's going to carry them for the next couple of months, right? So many people are lacking the most simple thing, which is having a vision. And so when you know where you're going, you can lead a team of people there. Again, so many people online are hiring these teams and they're building these big teams around a business that doesn't really have much of a vision. And so when they hire people into the business, they're kind of hiring them and putting this enormous amount of pressure on them that they're almost going to kind of come in and save the day, right? When really your team members are just there to enhance what already exists, right? You can also craft offers around the vision. So this is huge. A lot of my clients, when we're going through the vision building portion of my program, this is where they're kind of realizing, okay, actually, I have my coaching business, I have the agency side, and when I really think about it, the agency side doesn't speak to my vision anymore. And so I have people that decide to close down their agencies. I have people that decide to narrow down their agency from 4 packages to a core 2 packages, right? I have people that decide to close masterminds and restructure the way that they do their offers, right? Really putting boundaries in place and a really clear description of what you get for the price point. And we're really starting to eliminate some of that scope creep that may be happening. So crafting your offers is so important because I think initially the thought is, okay, what do my clients want? What's going to be profitable? How can I make the most money? But then you really get into the nitty gritty of it and you realize the way that I run my business right now does not offer me the flexibility to ever achieve the lifestyle that I want to achieve. Maybe I'll have the money, but will I have the time, right? And then lastly, it becomes your moral compass for all decisions moving forward. So I can easily say no to different opportunities because I understand that it's not helping me get to where I want to get to, right? If I have already promised myself certain things, I'm not going to go in the direction opposite of those things, right? I'm going to make those tough decisions. And it's not always going to be easy, but at least you know how to make those decisions, right? So that is CEO vision, and that's why it's so, so important. So let's talk about setting yourself up to scale. So the key to having a scalable and sustainable business is a strong foundation. I think this is very obvious, right? But again, this is such an important step that so many of us miss. So there are 2 things that you can kind of audit when you're trying to identify if your business is scalable, right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is your business model. So thinking about the model that you currently have, I want you to ask yourself, how many clients or customers could you currently serve with this offer? Let's say in a given month, right? And then when you think about whatever that number is, your number of capacity, right? The number in which you can't go past without other people, then I want you to ask yourself, if I were to hire X, Y, or Z person, would it help me increase my capacity? If the answer to this question is no, then we need to revisit your business model. And I think a really good example of this might be if you are wanting to be able to serve 50 clients per month, right? But you only want to do one-on-one coaching and you want to keep your price point the same. It's like you most likely can't work with 50 people one-on-one in a given month. And hiring someone else might not necessarily help that, right? Sure, you could hire a VA to maybe take away some of the admin functions and stuff, but the actual work of being on 50 one-on-one calls per month, you most likely would not be able to outsource to anyone else. So that's not to say we have to stop one-on-one, right? But maybe that's to say that we need to add in some other element that allows us to be able to reach our goals and that allows us to kind of achieve the lifestyle that we want to have. The next one is scalable operations. So this is where you're asking yourself the question of, do you have the systems and processes in place to make your operations run smoother? Now, this is not just talking about your ClickUp, your Asana, your Slack, your whatever, right? And I'm not just talking about the technology, but here what we're really talking about is the A to Z process from the point of someone being interested in working with you until the point that you fully offboard them. Can you articulate every single step of that process? And better yet, has every step of that process been outsourced to a person? Just because you have automations in your business, that doesn't mean that you don't still need someone who manages those automations. Automations fail. I had that happen today actually, where we had a Zap set up so that when people enroll in my program, they're supposed to get these 3 steps, but the Zap failed for one reason or another. But because I have my team member who is in my email 4 times a day and she sees all the things that are happening, she saw that the Zap failed and she immediately was able to go in and fix it. So here we want to really think about, do I have every single step of the process mapped out and is it efficient? Is there anything that we can do to make our processes more efficient? Are there any major gaps in my process currently? So those are 2 things that I want you to think about. Okay, so for anyone watching that lives in the South, or maybe just in the United States in general, I'm not sure how far Popeyes goes, but raise your hand silently if you remember the Popeyes chicken sandwich. So Popeyes is a fast food chain that sells fried chicken galore, right? And in 2019, they came out with a chicken sandwich. Not a big deal, right? Every fast food chain has a chicken sandwich. McDonald's, Zaxby's, Chick-fil-A, Burger King, everyone has a chicken sandwich, right? Well, this chicken sandwich came out, and shortly after, a few celebrities were doing reviews on this chicken sandwich, and they were posting videos of them like live reacting to it. And they were like, oh my God, this is so great, right? And so overnight, Popeyes became like a sensation. Everyone was lined up to get these chicken sandwiches. Me personally, I drove to 5 different locations. This was back when I was in my corporate days. So I'm out and about in the metro Atlanta area, and I drove to 5 different locations, and every one of them was sold out. Some of them, you know, the ones that were right off the exit was backed up because so many people were in line, right? They had signs on their drive-through, sold out. Some of the Popeyes decided to close down early just because they didn't have the sandwich. They still had their drums and wings and all the other things, but nobody wanted that, right? They had to close their doors. And so essentially what happened here is that they received the reviews, the customers responded, but they weren't ready, right? Is it not our dream that we come up with a new product or service and we launch it to the public and people react that way? Everyone just wants it, right? They're just waiting to buy. But the flip side of that is that we're not always prepared on the back end for that, right? They essentially had to close their doors. They had to shrink in the face of opportunity. This was really an opportunity for them to reassert themselves as an authority in the industry, in the fast food industry, right? But instead they became the laughingstock. Now, you may be thinking, okay, Tatiana, this is a cool story, but where are you going with this? I want you to apply this to your online business, your coaching business, your product business, your agency, because when we lay that foundation, we will be ready for big business. Popeyes did not have the foundation in place when it came to this, right? They didn't have the proper training and onboarding processes. They were trying to make panic hires and bring people on board, and they were just kind of throwing them to the wolves, right? Now, for you watching this, you are most likely in a position where the majority of what you've been taught online is how to market and how to sell. Both of those things are so important, but it means absolutely nothing if you don't have a strong sense of how your operations work and have a really strong internal structure as you begin to build out your team, right? So let's talk about that next. Let's talk about how we can really create this internal structure for our team. So we're going to talk through my delegation task matrix. You can grab this on my website at tatianaohara.co/task matrix. It's a freebie. It's like a fillable PDF, and it's so helpful. So this is essentially what it looks like. It is a 4-quadrant document. And so what you're going to do first is you're going to brain dump all of the things that you do day to day in your business. Now, this is going to take you some time. You're not going to be able to do this in one sitting, right? But you want to have a master list. I always say if you don't have at least 30 things on the list, then you're really not thinking through all of the things that you truly do in your business, right? So in the first quadrant from this brain dump, this is where you're going to categorize the different things that you put on the list. So the first category is things that you like to do in your business that you also do well. So here, this is where I'm putting all things speaking engagements. This is where I'm putting coaching. Maybe I'm putting, just creative marketing ideas. This is where I'm putting meeting with my team, leading my team, so on and so forth, right? This is most likely going to be your zone of genius. Now, in quadrant 2, this is where you're going to write the things that you don't like to do, but you do them well. You don't like to do them, but you do them well. So for an example of this for me would be creating slide presentations, right? I don't like to do it. I wish that I could just get the thoughts in my head onto the slides beautifully designed automatically, but I do it well, right? So basically what that means is I don't want to do it, but if push comes to shove, I can. It's not the end of the world if I have to do it, right? In quadrant 3, here at the bottom left, you're going to write the things that you like to do, but you don't do well. Now, this is the toxic zone. This is where we find ourselves wasting a lot of our time when we should be focused on, big things, but we're trying to distract ourselves with like the little things that we like to do. So when I say don't do well, it doesn't always mean that it's not a skill set of yours, but sometimes it can mean that you're really inefficient at it or that it takes you way longer than it should. So an example here for me would be social media engagement. Full transparency. I love responding to comments and just having like conversations with people, but I don't do it well. And when I say I don't do it well, I mean I go down a 4-hour rabbit hole on social media every single day. And so for me, as I build out my team, it's important that I have someone there that can kind of do some of this on my behalf, right? Now, in quadrant 4, you're going to write out the things that you don't like to do and you also don't do well. This is probably going to be the easiest section, right? For me, this is all things tech, email segments, automations, setting up Zoom links, calendar management, email management, all of these things, right? Now, when you're done, you're going to be able to take a step back and look at this from a bird's eye view. And most likely for the first time ever in your business, you're going to be able to see where the heck you're spending all your time. So many people tell me, Tatiana, I am working 10, 12-hour days, and at the end of the day, I have no idea what I even accomplished. Now we'll be able to identify what is it that you're actually spending your time on. Then you're going to take this information and use this to identify who you need to hire. So all of this will kind of come together, right? So when you're thinking about, okay, well, who do I need to hire? How do I read this? First, you're going to think about, as you begin to grow, what do you need to take off of your plate? Most likely, it's going to be all the things in quadrant 4. So we're going to start with quadrant 4 and work our way backwards. It's basically the order of priority as it pertains to delegating, right? So this is the biggest priority, second biggest priority. This is like, we would love to be able to delegate it if we can slide it into a role. And then number 1 is most likely going to be your zone of genius. Now, you do want to make sure that you don't have anything sneaking into number 1 that is like, time-consuming things that aren't really CEO tasks. Like I did this with a client once and she put Pinterest management on here. So just because you like to manage your own Pinterest and you're good at managing your own Pinterest doesn't mean that that's the best use of your time. So you want to like dig through that list and make sure it's good things that you should be spending your time on. So you're also going to decide what you want to eliminate and of course what you want to automate. But remember that even if it's automated, someone still needs to manage the automation, right? And then as far as things you want to eliminate, you may find that there are some practices that you're still doing in your business that are unnecessary, that aren't really moving the needle forward, that we can stop altogether. And so maybe that looks like, I don't think stopping Pinterest would be a good example because you'd probably want to keep that. But maybe, if you have a really old school way of managing your email, maybe we can eliminate that practice altogether and come up with a more efficient one for it, right? So then I put an asterisk here because this only applies if you have a team currently, but you're going to review your team's current duties. So as you look at this list, you want to identify, is everyone on my team in a place where they're best serving the business currently, or is something off, right? So this is not always, oh, this is all the people I need to go out and hire. Sometimes it's, let me fill this out and then compare it back to what I currently have my VA doing, my project manager doing, my OBM doing, my social media manager doing, and see what I can pull off of there, right? Also, and I'm kind of flipping back and forth between these two, but you're also going to identify what are the common trends within that list of tasks. So if you find that they're primarily administrative tasks, it's mostly some sort of administrative support that you need. If you find that it's mostly marketing tasks, then it's probably marketing support. If you run a podcast and it's like podcast editing, show notes, podcast graphics, then maybe it's like a podcast editing team. So you can really identify the actual role that you need to hire. I also want you to think back to that ideal work week from your vision. How can you use that task matrix to support you in being able to get there quicker? And then lastly, we want to make sure that you're spending your time closest to the money. As a CEO, it's your job to drive revenue, right? And so if you're not doing the things that are going to drive revenue, then you're going to find yourself, messing up. So don't be so quick to delegate all of the revenue generating activities to other team members when you as a CEO might most likely need to hang on to those for a little bit longer. Okay, so now that you feel like you have a little bit of an idea of what type of people you need, how do you know when it's time to do that, right? So we have two different reactive ways to identify. I go through reactive first because unfortunately that's going to be applicable to most of us, right? So the first one is if you're approaching workload capacity, right? So what this can look like is turning away clients. I call these people the waitlist queens, the waitlist kings. You're constantly having someone on a waitlist to be able to work with you. You and your team feeling burned out. If you don't have a team, then it's just you feeling burned out constantly and working more hours than budgeted. And so sometimes I get the question of well, how many hours should I have budgeted? If you're working 70 hours a week right now in your business, I guarantee you're working more hours than budgeted, right? You didn't start your business with the intention of working this many hours. So that's one way. So if you feel like you're approaching workload capacity, raise your hand, right? Now, the second one is hitting a ceiling in your business. Now, this may look like maybe you're not necessarily at your workload capacity physically, but maybe you're there mentally, right? And so your team is stagnant, uninspired, underperforming. You're making really small mistakes for no reason. You're missing things that you've never missed before, right? Maybe your revenue is at a standstill or it seems to have peaked. Like you can't seem to get past $20,000 a month and you don't know why, right? So these are two ways that you can kind of identify that it may be time for you to leverage support around you. Now, if hitting a ceiling in your business is you, raise your hand. But then sometimes we feel like we're experiencing both. We have two hands up in the air, right? That is completely normal. Now, from the more proactive approach, I would say maybe you're not hurting right now, which is awesome. If you're feeling these things, you probably needed to hire months ago, right? But if you're not feeling these things yet, another way to think about when it's time to potentially hire could be to look at just simply, I'm tired of trading my time for money. I really want to have more time and leverage support, right? Or another way would be, I guess, just realizing that you want to scale into a different avenue of business that currently isn't a skill set of yours. So for me, when I really wanted to start running ads, I didn't know ads and I really didn't have the capacity to teach myself ads. And so that's when I decided to hire an ads expert into my business. So those are a couple other ways that you can look at this. Okay, so now what do I do first? So I've identified who I need to hire. I've identified that I need to hire them now, right? Now, like, how do I actually get the ball rolling? So first, again, if you have a team, you're going to assess the strengths and weaknesses of those people currently, because you may identify that someone is currently serving in a VA role, but they'd be a really good manager. Maybe we want to move them into project management or operations management. Or just you may find that someone needs to make a switch completely, right? Then, utilizing the task matrix, identify the gaps that you may have in your business and figure out who those next roles are going to be. So from the task matrix, you may have been able to pull 1, 2, sometimes even 3 hires and identify who they are, right? If it's primarily administrative tasks, maybe it's hiring that virtual assistant. If it's primarily like decision making or managing deadlines or managing people, then maybe it looks like hiring leadership into your business. If you have a membership or a program that is ran through a community and you're finding yourself struggling to keep the community engaged, to make sure that everyone's payment is up to date, to make sure that all the content is posted, potentially having a community manager. And then the account manager example is typically more for our agencies who have a book of clients and they find that they need someone to help them manage the clients better. So identify who that role is, right? Then we want to think about a budget for this hire. So this is something that you're going to want to talk through with your CPA, your CFO, whichever financial expert that you're working with. I highly recommend working with someone, especially if you've already hit 6 figures in your business. It has been an absolute game changer for me personally. And they can really help you identify like what this budget should be. But just know that they don't have to be full-time, right? And most of us are going to start working with contractors that are working 5-10 hours a week. And it's typically a lot more affordable than you think it is, right? A good general rule of thumb is to keep your payroll under about 30% of your monthly revenue. But again, that is not a one-size-fits-all answer, but that is like a general rule of thumb to get you started. Now, you're going to want to talk to someone to figure out for your business specifically, what should that look like? Because I know, generally our agencies' profit margins are going to be completely different. Our product-based businesses are especially going to be completely different. So those are all things to consider. So let's do a quick recap. So today we talked about things that you're going to need to have that scalable business, right? So the first thing is a CEO vision and a powerful, unshakable mindset, right? We really want to be, the best version of ourselves as we begin to build out this team and scale to the next level. Speaking of scaling to the next level, we need a business model that we can grow upon. So if you identify that your business model currently isn't going to get you there, that's not a bad thing, right? It got you to this point. Now we just have to make a couple of adjustments. The awareness to know when it's time to delegate, hire, and outsource. Don't be the entrepreneur that waits until it's too late. Now, technically it's never too late, but some people wait until they're at the point where they're so overwhelmed and so far gone mentally that when they do bring these people on, they have the most unrealistic expectations of this person and they don't really have the time to invest in their training and development. So hire before you're ready, right? Financially when it makes sense, but hire before you're ready. And then lastly, clear communication between you, your clients, and your team. So communication is the main thing that you need to make the dream work, and we want to make sure that we have that with our team members. So if you enjoyed this and you're wondering, how can we work together? How can we take this thing to the next level? I would love to have you apply for Grindaholics Anonymous. So this is my signature program. It's my only offer. And this is how I support entrepreneurs through the hiring and team building process, as well as through the process of streamlining their offers, their processes, and making sure that they're building their business in a way that is directed towards their vision, not the vision of everyone else on social media, right? So you can apply at grindaholicsAnonymous.com and get access to my exclusive private training. I highly recommend it. It's like almost 2 hours long and it is so juicy. So if you enjoyed, the information that we went through today briefly, this training is going to go into even more detail for you. So I would love to see your application, and I enjoyed this so much. I hope you did too, and I'm here for any questions that you may have. Thank you so much. Have a good one.